So I had a bit of downtime over the weekend and I wanted to check out some stuff that wasn't a new release. Now, I've had these on my list for a bit, but over the past few weeks I have gotten a crap ton of recommendations to watch. So I decided to give Baahubali, the beginning, a watch. I mean, it's from the same director as RRR, and since I had really a lot of fun with that one, I figured this might be a good watch too. So was it? In ancient India, an adventurous and daring man becomes involved in a decades-old feud between two warring peoples. This is an epic story as it spans across two full generations. The film begins with some woman bursting out of the jungle holding this infant, and she's got this massive arrow in her back. Now, she is obviously on the run and she's trying to protect the child. And with her dying act, she does save the kid right under this massive waterfall. Now, I say massive, but it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, it must be something like 2,500 feet high, maybe even more than that. But the reason this is important is that we watch a montage of the infant growing into a boy and then into a young man. Now, he's obsessed with climbing up the waterfall to the very top. So right from the very beginning of the movie, we see some insane stunts, some of which look to rival Tom Cruise's exploits in a Mission Impossible movie. The young man is given the name Sivu, and we have zero clue as to why the woman was running with him as an infant, nor do we know from whom. Now, as Sivu goes on his journey, and it's kind of like he's drawn to explore, he encounters a warrior that he is instantly attracted to. She's part of a group whose goal is to rescue some woman that's being held captive. And again, at this point, we don't really have any context for all of the motivations of these characters. But because Sivu has basically fallen in love with the warrior named Avantika, he wants to help her, and which then leads him on the same journey to free that captive woman. Now, all throughout this movie, there are crazy action sequences, from Sivu scaling the mountain with the waterfall to an insane toboggan-like snow ride down a mountain. And these aren't even involving battle. As Sivu is making his journey to free the captive woman, we're also being shown how and where she's being held captive. Now, at first, there's not a lot of background given as to why, but we can tell that there is a lot of political scheming that's going on, and at some point, a struggle for power has ensued. Now, at about the halfway point in the movie, there is a battle that breaks out as a result of Sivu trying to free the captive woman. And we get some rumblings through the crowds as the kingdom residents, they begin to start calling Sivu Baahubali, which then gets a huge rise out of the king. So apparently, this name means something to the people and the king. And it doesn't appear that the king likes whoever Baahubali is, or maybe was. Now, the final half of the film is a massive flashback, showing what went on in the kingdom in the past, and it begins to fill out the details of the players and the story. But mixed all throughout this are some wonderfully awesome battle scenes that are grand in scale and wickedly violent. If you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings movies, many of the battles we're shown are to that same scale, where there's a ton of carnage going on. But within, because there's also this small fantastical element, the main characters have extreme strength and abilities, allowing them to fight with almost this superhuman strength. That means that when a spear is thrown, it will pass through several people. Or when a kick is landed, it will send the attacker flying through the air to then topple a few other attackers. And it's so exciting to watch, and it has a very dramatic flair to it. And then when the cinematography and special effects are put into place, the scenes are even wilder. And I'm not suggesting that the special effects are flawless, because there are portions where things are clearly computer generated or digitally painted. But I wasn't concerned with some of these because just the overall execution was so full of grandeur and spectacle. Now, one thing that is present in this is the extreme use of slow-mo. The movie is 2 hours and 39 minutes. My guess is, though, that it could probably be about 25 minutes shorter if there weren't so many slow-mo scenes. Now, sometimes these enhance the action, allowing us to witness all the details of an action sequence. But then it's also employed just as a character will walk down the aisle of a room, and the slow-mo, while allowing us to witness the character's hair flowing in the breeze, it just feels excessive at times. In the battle sequences, there are some very creative weapons used. Now, maybe they are historically accurate, at least partially, but regardless of that, there are some that are absolutely brutal. There's this chariot-like thing that's pulled by oxen or some animal like that. And the chariot is behind them, as you'd expect. But in front of the animals is this spinning blade that looks like a monster-sized weed whacker, except they're huge metal blades that spin like a rotor on a helicopter. I mean, to say these are deadly is a massive understatement. There's also this mace-like weapon that has this huge ball on top of a staff. Now, it's wielded like a sword, but the thing has the ability to release the ball so that it flies out of the handle on a chain. Holy crap, this thing can cause some devastation. It's so much fun to watch them used in battle because of just all the carnage that they create. Now, the music in this is varied. I really enjoyed the musical numbers where the characters sing, or even when a song is playing over scenery, providing more context for the narrative. But then there are some musical stingers that sometimes enhance the mood, and other times they greatly detract. Some feel like they're trying to enunciate an emotion or a mood, but they come across as distracting. Now, I think my biggest issue with them is that the emotional effect is inconsistent, because sometimes they work well, and other times they pulled me out of what was going on. I really enjoyed the character arcs within this, but parts of it feel like they have a start and then they become neglected. Like, we watch Sivu fall in love with Avantika, but because of how the story then transitions to the flashback, that portion is kind of forgotten. And that's probably my biggest complaint, I mean, if I can call it that, for the entire movie. This is truly just part one of the story. When the film ends, there isn't any sort of resolution. Yes, I mean, the action has been wild and engaging. The story has really sucked me in and captivated me. The characters are dynamic and charismatic, rich with emotion, and clearly have me rooting for some and rooting against others. I'm invested in their outcomes, and I'm drawn to the political scheming that's slowly unveiled. But then the movie ends. Now, luckily, because this isn't a brand new movie, both parts are available, so I don't have to wait a year or maybe two for the conclusion. But it is a bit frustrating to start a story like this, especially with the length, to have it end right in the middle of the tale. There's sex, no nudity or profanity, but obviously an immense amount of violence. Now, I'm going to hold off on giving a score because this is only half the story. I don't think it's going to necessarily be fair or even reasonable to just rate half the story. But do know this, I had a blast while watching, and I loved what I have seen so far. I kind of liken this to the final Harry Potter movie, where it's split into two parts, and you must see both in order to even get the full story. And because this is available on Netflix, at least in the US, once I finished up with Baahubali, the beginning, I was able to dive right into Baahubali 2, the conclusion. So I'm going to be giving a review for that in a separate video. Look for it soon. Since this isn't a recent movie, have you seen it? I'd love to know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.